Formula One entered one of the most significant regulation changes in its history in 2022, which saw the cars change drastically from what we had ever seen in the past. It meant that the order would change massively, with teams falling behind after dominating so long, like Mercedes, and other teams like Red Bull showed what they are made of. However, even though these changes have been massive for Formula One, and it has made the sport so different in a number of ways, whether that be for the good or the bad, there are still some big changes coming very soon. And that, of course, is the huge engine regulation changes that are coming in 2026, with many partnerships announced, which we will get into later, and many more announcements are set to be made in the very near future. With all of these changes expected to come in 2026, we thought that it would be a good idea to have a little look at what Formula One could be in a few years' time. In today's video, we will discuss the partnerships that we will see, what the regulations may actually look like, how we could see the addition of some teams, and maybe losing some teams from the grid that we've grown to love in recent years. And we will end things off talking about how this may be good due to the state of Formula One right now. Let's get right into it, shall we? Kicking off this video, we will be talking about how the new regulations a little bit and what exactly they will bring to the sport. In 2024, we saw the introduction of the V6 turbo hybrid engine, which many people did not like, as we would lose the sound of Formula One cars. When someone heard the previous V8 engine, it was iconic, and you could easily link it to Formula One. But the sound had completely changed, and it came with some backlash, to say the least. But it did change the sport, as teams would nail these engine changes to the V6 in 2014, like Mercedes, who would dominate for the years to come, whilst others like Ferrari couldn't get a hang of it. In 2026, we will be seeing a massive change to the V6 engines, which is aiming to make the sport more sustainable, as Formula One wants to become carbon neutral by 2030, to help with the issue of global warming. The engines will be more electric based, with having sustainable fuels which are good for the environment, but it'd be hard for all the teams to adapt to this. At this moment in time, we don't know what exactly the regulations will look like, but we will learn more and more as time goes on. But it does have a lot of focus on making the sport more sustainable and better for the environment. Do you think that these engine regulations will be good for the sport? Drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Moving on to our next topic, and that is how we'll be seeing some very unique but exciting partnerships when it comes to engine manufacturers and more. With 2026, it means that every team will have to produce their own engine if they want to make gains and have an advantage over their competitors. This will mean teams in Alpine, Ferrari and Mercedes will produce their own engine and will assume, but anything can change, whilst the rest of the teams will partner up with other brands and companies to make their engines for them. Red Bull has partnered up with Ford so they can have their engines made for them under the Ford Powertrains name. Aston Martin has also partnered with returning Honda so they have their engines being made by the Japanese company who was with Red Bull for so long and back with their new team in green. Sauber is partnering up with Audi too, which the team have been setting up for already even at 2023, so maybe expect them to climb up in the order. AlphaTauri is expected to follow the same as Red Bull and have Ford as their engine partner, but that could change and we'll get into that soon. The other teams have not announced their engine partners for 2026, but Porsche has been spoken about a lot and do expect to come into the sport very soon. AlphaTauri may see a massive change, as recently as it was announced they will have a new name and sponsors too. We do not know what this will be in 2026. They may be a totally separate team from Red Bull family, as they don't even use the team anymore. It is likely to see the introduction of some new teams, with Formula One to have 12 teams on the grid, with Andretti being a big front runner for them to get into the sport after trying for so many years. Everyone wants a piece of Formula One, so we are certain that the teams will be trying their hardest to get into the sport. We will have to wait and see how these new teams come around, and how these partnerships will possibly change the order of the pack. What do you think will come out on top once these engine regulations are put in place? Will Red Bull continue to dominate, will a surprising challenger take the fight to them? Let us know in the comments below. Our third and final topic of this little look at Formula 1 in 2026 is how it may help Formula 1 a lot due to how the sport is right now. The sport is dominated by one team, and that is Red Bull, as they have won every single race so far until the Austrian Grand Prix as we speak. Most of the races are won by 10, 20 and sometimes even 30 seconds, and this has been the case since the 2022 regulations came in with the intention of providing closer racing. Whilst they provided closer racing for the midfield teams, it has hurt the racing at the front of the grid, with one team always walking away with it in the past 2 seasons. However, these new engine regulations are not coming in to improve the racing, but they might be due to an accident in a way. This is because it's natural that some of the new engine manufacturers will get it wrong, and some will nail it. This means that we could see another massive change in the order, which could result in more dominance from another team, or we could see how a lot of teams come out equally, and we could see a title fight. Of course, the changes in 2026 only change the power aspect of the car, so even if some teams have a better engine than others, the rest of the car is so bad, they will not all of a sudden become quicker. We have, even on this channel, talked about how the regulations have failed with what they were intended to do with providing better racing across the grid. But we can hope that these changes that we see in 26 will shuffle up the pack to get better racing from the top to the very bottom of the grid. 2021 was a very rare year, whereas the title fight went to the very end, and most seasons seen one team walk away with it, especially what Mercedes did, but it was the time in the regulations that many people were not happy with. The racing was fine, and everyone loved the cars, but they decided to change it. And then we were getting another change in 2026, which has been planned for a long time. Overall, having looked at many different aspects of what Formula 1 will look like in 2026, it has to be said that a lot will change. We will see more and more announcements as we get closer and closer to the year, and they will change the sport for a long time, especially if we see new teams join the grid for the first time since 2016. The sport will be changed forever once again, whether that be for the good or the bad. We'll just have to wait under 3 years to find out what the answer will be to that question. What are your thoughts on what Formula 1 will look like in 2026? Do you think that the sport will continue growing due to these upcoming changes and additions, or do you actually prefer how the sport is right now? Make sure to drop a comment below and let us know what your thoughts are on this matter. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like this one.